The TED Talk scene today has been about a variety of interesting and very mature topics. Well, ours is about cereal. Hi, I'm Deanna.
And I'm Rachel, and we love cereal. Actually, we're passionate about food because we have no lives. Food fills us. Why do we love cereal? Aside from it being one of the few things we can afford, it's the most convenient food on the market today.
It's more convenient than ramen.
I don't like cooking, and even putting food into the microwave is more than I want to do. It's everything one could ask for in a food and more. It's the ultimate power food, processed strained and crunchy shapes, packed with protein, fiber, and sugar. Cereal, known today as a classic American breakfast, was started by one man. His idea would create a billion-dollar industry and create a future.
Cereal originally came from corn. Corn was mashed up and served as grits, or crushed and used for brewing beer before being changed to the beautiful crunchy cereal we love. In America, grits were popular in the South, but who eats grits anymore? Why would you want to go through that torture? Love yourself. But it never caught on in the North, which really isn't a surprise. The Northerners was far enough to end slavery. Clearly they can avoid grits.
I went to the Waffle House the other day, and my friend ordered food, and it came with grits. So we looked at the grits and we asked the waitress, does anyone actually eat grits? You know what she said? No one eats grits.
So 162 years ago, in 1854, for those of our audience who do not wish to do math in the middle of the presentation, about cereal, Northerner have had enough of grits.
Sorry.
He began experimenting with other starchy foods. Go.
That he could eat instead, something actually appetizing. Most normal people would just eat ham, bacon, or eggs, or bread, but not Ferdinand Shoemaker. This German immigrant wanted to create his own food. He was living the American dream. He was a farmer, so he had a bunch of tools at his disposal to experiment with those poor oats. And so Ferdinand went out to his barn with some oats and decided to roll them flat. Stated he used a roller to flatten them, which could either be a large farming tool that used for plowing land, or just a simple kitchen one to roll out bread. Oh my god!
No. Oh, sorry. The latter wouldn't be very sanitary, but hey, I mean, people are still pooping in rivers. Why did you do this? Not enough very people long after Ferdinand rolled his first oat. In London, England, which Americans modeled their waste management system of, had a poop problem. So bad it was called the Great Stink of 1858.
Now back to the dirty German. With positive response from his family, which once again isn't surprising since anything is better than grits. Anything.
Seriously.
And he and his brother quit the farming jobs and opened their own oatmeal manufacturing plant. The first advertising campaign for cereal was called a substitute for breakfast pork, which is kind of a really big lie, especially since the whole grain for breakfast thing wasn't popularized by Ferdinand, but by a Presbyterian minister 17 years before rolled oats. Wasn't even a substitute for meat.
This minister, Sylvester Graham, was a vegan.
Sorry, put it down.
So naturally, he had to tell everyone about it and make them convert, like vegans do. He's known for the antebellum dime reform, which for some reason isn't called the vegan movement. This man wrote a book titled A Treatise on Bread and Bread Making, and nicknamed The Prophet of Bran Bread. He preached about fresh, unprocessed food and didn't eat with spices or condiments, which is why Americans are known for seasoning their food with water. Water wasn't really processed back then like it is today, although it was filled with feces, so it really could have been. But Americans have a culture of not thinking where their stuff comes from because we're disgusting. He created graham crackers, which were dry as hard as rocks. The graham crackers of today were overly processed and pumped with sugar and corn syrup, which is exactly what he warned against. Irony. Graham also warned that masturbation causes blindness, which is why so many people today are wearing contacts to hide the fact that they're sinners and the devil's making their eyesight.
I'm a sinner.
Stop.
Nine years after Shoemaker began selling his hot oats in 1863, James Caleb Jackson began selling his version of breakfast meat alternatives. You just said that.
No, I didn't. Stop there.
Oh my god, just stop!
We're gonna keep on going. We're gonna keep on going. Physicians have proved that there is no correlation between masturbation and eyesight, but hey, everyone makes mistakes. Okay. Some people believe that mistakes are even worse than grits.
So James Caleb Jackson began selling his version of breakfast meat. Jackson came out with the first cold cereal, which he labeled ready to eat, because apparently oatmeal wasn't ready enough for him, even though his cereal had to be soaked overnight to be enjoyed.
That's not very ready to eat.
He created granola with a U. His cereal was heavy bran and graham chunks. The cereal took longer to be ready to eat than oatmeal because oatmeal just had to be cooked and it had to be soaked overnight, just so that they could be chewed. Granola was harder than the profit of bran breads, graham crackers. Granola soon died out in the United States. Other countries, however, loved it. A Swiss doctor made his own version of granola. I love seeing the audience cringe every time I say granola, but I'm not actually pronouncing it wrong. He just switched one letter from granola and called it a day. He's very original. The Swiss granola was called muesli. It was created around 1900s, which was a few years after that. It's a raw rolled oat and grain mixture. Granola was cooked, so it's not exactly granola.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
Maybe it's granola.
Maybe we're all gonna die.
The Swiss walnut.
You didn't take that.
You didn't believe that!
My bad.
The Swiss won't die because of IKEA.
They're also a peaceful country.
In Switzerland and Germany, it's eaten mixed with milk, yogurt, fruit juice, or milk. Some mix in fruit to modernize and increase the sweet taste and add nutrients. The original muesli was very similar to Caleb's granola, where it had to be soaked overnight. Unlike granola, it is still popular today.
Now we finally get to the good stuff. The crunchy cereal of today was finally ready to be produced. The cereal business didn't truly boom until Kellogg and its crunchy corn cereal. Technically the Kellogg, the American cereal company, was expanding rapidly and having international sales, but cold cereal appeals to the masses because they can relate to the cold parts. Oh. The cereal business took exponential. Multiple new religions adopted the message. It was influential to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. This church believes in hydrotherapy, the water cure-all, a strict vegetarian diet, and abstinence from coffee, tea, alcohol, and drugs.
And masturbation.
There we go. John Harvey Kellogg studied medicine and opened up a sanatorium in Battle Creek, Michigan, later nicknamed cereal capital of the world. To supplement his diets and those of his patients, he experimented with corn. In 1891, he got a patent for its likely wheat product, and in 1895, he launched the cornflakes brand. Like Graham, Kellogg also believed that the name brand would spread inside people's eyes because of her. Soon there were 40 rival wheat flake manufacturers in the Battle Creek area alone. However, Dr. Kellogg was the oat goat, the OG.
The OG, if you will. When Dr. Kellogg retired, Mr. Kellogg, his brother, bought the company and renamed it to Kellogg's Toasted Cornflakes Company because they sold cornflakes.
Very true.
Kellogg also made his signature the trademark. Since Kellogg had status to influence, it only made sense that his signature would have the ether's appeal to his healthy breakfast cereal. William turned the company away from health food, and
Commercial repeat. Sales exploded exponentially. Intense advertising and a tastier, more additives like sugar boosted the product. Sugar is the most important part, don't forget that. Mary Poppins meant to say a spoonful of cereal helps the medicine go down, but the prop guy ate all the cereal before the take, so they were forced to use a cereal substitute for granulated sugar. William Kellogg innovated in marketing and changed the future of business in America. Without the OG, the cereal industry would stay hot. Well, I mean, who actually pays attention to the cereal industry? No one did, and no one has yet, except for us. Thanks to Kellogg, the cereal was catching on as a popular product. Stores were selling generic cracked wheat and oatmeal, as well as name brand cereal out of barrels where customers would have to scoop their own food. Very sanitary. I don't want to imagine the amount of bugs crawling through those bins.
I worked at a pet store. We cleaned plastic bins once a week, and there were still found colonies of mites and moths. In the 19th century, people had little concept of how to care for their poop or their food. In 1879, George Houghton decided to package his wheat cereal in boxes for a more sanitary consumer experience. Because nobody wants to eat cereal and oats touched by nasty hands or bugs. Other name brand cereal followed suit. America started finally understanding the basics of cleanliness.
Amazing.
After Kellogg, new cereal companies and innovations exploded in the market to try and make a name for themselves and share in the growing industry. Wheaties brand alone had 12% of the sales of the entire cereal industry. First rolled, then puffed. Alexander Anderson had a cool invention of steam pressure method for shooting rice out of guns, create puffed rice and puffed wheat. But puffed oat and corn cereal didn't come out until the 1930s. Most popular were Kix, puffed corn, and Cheerios by General Mills.
Next, two copycat companies opened their doors. Instead of experimenting, the next big cereal invention came by an accident, like me. James Wyman found a way to roll milk grain through rollers to produce thin and flaky layers, but he was supposed to be rolling them for beer. He showed his boss, Joseph F. Gann, who patented the process and took all the credit and fired Van Wyck because he's a dick.
Stop cursing! We're sending this to roscher!
Gann's company produced uncooked corn flakes for use in brewing beer. The only decent grist, because the fact that grist in beer is drowned out by alcohol. Cereal line malt flakes. Cereal, not beer. Cereal line malt flakes. Both were called cereal line. Were being sold by 1887, but they didn't become popular for a decade. Second big company was started by Charles Copycat W. Post. That's not his actual name. Did you know that one?
That really is his name.
Who was a patient at Kellogg's Sanitarium. He was inspired by the Kellogg's all-grain diet, and upon leaving the hospital, experimented and created an all-grain coffee substitute. Because apparently drinking coffee to fuel your caffeine addiction is sinful in 19th century America. But again, what is it? In 1898, this non-coffee drinking heathen came out with his own cereal, grape nuts.
Which neither contained grapes or nuts, but had a strong nutty flavor.
Ooh. Advertising is always a big part of cereal. Cereal did start as being advertised as a substitute for meat instead of grits. Fun fact, the first trademark for cereal was a Quaker. Quakers had the reputation of being honest and reliable. By this time, more and more people were entering meat. In 1901, the American Cereal Company changed the name from Quaker Oats to match their mascot. However, the first commercially successful cereal did not come out until 1902.
Force wheat flakes took to the market by force. Shredded wheat was out since 1890 and cream of wheat was out since 1893, but neither could compete with cornflakes. Force changed that. Wheat gained forever. The product expanded to Europe in 1903 and sales just exploded. Despite ownership being changed frequently and business turmoil, Force wheat flakes managed to make it to the 21st century thanks to sponsoring an popular American radio show. As consumers were able to have more and more technology at their disposal, the industry prioritized marketing strategies over healthy, innovative grit products. Sponsoring a radio show, cartoon, sports team also increased sales. Wheaties made a name for itself by sponsoring the minor league baseball, Minneapolis Millers, on their box on the radio. In 1934, Wheaties was advertising to top players like Lou Gehrig. Wheaties also sponsored radio shows Skippy and Jack Armstrong, the All-American Boy. Before cereal became even more popular with their sponsor man of the radio show, Superman, which later led to comics. With the invention of the television, the internet, and advertising, more and more opportunities become available.
After World War II, cereal success became even less health and more about appealing to teen splits, specifically children. This is a business reason on why we love cereal. As technology boomed and became more accessible to customers, so did cereal. Since the turn of the century, almost all cereals featured a mascot. Cereal companies found that people who decided what cereal was being bought into homes was the children, and began marketing to them. They came out with super sugary cereals and bright colored with cartoon mascots. Trix, Frosted Flakes, and Lucky Charms are prime examples.
The Sugar Smacks had 56% sugar content.
Fun fact. The cereal box's mascot eyes are angled down when they are placed on lower shelves. They are looking directly in the eyes of kids, which is a sign of trust, but sounds a little creepy to me. Food plays a major role in our lives, and unbeknownst to us, surrounds with many ads on a multitude of platforms. Cereal gave America a unique breakfast culture. It set us apart from the other countries, besides, of course, our complicated representative democracy with the electoral college and customary system. It all started with one man's idea on not eating meat for breakfast. I mean, they didn't eat meat anyway, but okay. He would be the start of a cultural change in the world power and a start of an international multi-billion-dollar industry.
I'd like to take this into our own lives. One crazy idea we might have today may inspire a cultural revolution and create an industry. Thank you.